Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. Today we're looking at the basic Excel skills that you would need as a student going for a first job or somebody who's getting a job that has a need for some basic Excel skills. Now firstly, there's a lot of nonsense out there on the web about what are basic skills. I've seen some really advanced skills being touted as being the sorts of things that you need for basic skills. So don't panic. I'm going to go through the basics and we're going to make this as simple and as quick as possible. To begin with, wherever you work, they're going to make it apparent where you launch Excel from. So you should be able to get Excel started pretty easily. And if you don't know where to find Excel, just ask somebody because that's their job to tell you. You'll have the file menu up here and you can go to open a file. You'll also save files from here. And again, any business is going to tell you where you need to save your files to. Now Excel is a spreadsheet, so what it does is it's got lots of rows down here and columns across here. The rows are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. and the columns A, B, C, D, and when you run out of letters then they start doing A, B, A, C, etc. and there's like hundreds of them in each direction. But you're not going to be affected by that. You're going to be working with smaller sorts of spreadsheets, certainly not anything that's going to fill an entire worksheet. Now every one of these intersections between a row and a column is called a cell, and it has what's called an address. So if you need to call on it, call on the information that's in it, you're going to call this particular cell C3. It's always the column letter and then the row number. So over here we've got H2. You'll see when you've got a cell selected that the column heading here and the row heading here are sort of lit up, so it's very easy to see. So you need to be able to navigate a worksheet. So I'm just clicking on these cells. I can also use the arrow keys. This particular workbook has 3 sheets, so I can click on the tabs down here to get from one sheet to another. And if I needed to add a new sheet, then I could just click on here to add a new sheet. Typically in the workplace you're going to be working with files that have already been created for you, but it is also important to understand a few things if you are required to create your own file. So I'm going to start entering some data for January and February sales. So you want to start fairly close to the top of the worksheet and don't be afraid to put things in column A. So I'm going to type January sales. And I'll just press enter because I've finished. You can see that the cell pointer here, the cell selector has gone down one cell, so I'll just go up and across because this is where February sales are going. You'll see that the word February sales is cut off part of January sales. Now beginner Excel users are going to go, oh, I don't like that. I'm going to just take that out and I'll start February sales over here. Well, that's the exact wrong thing to do. If you find that a column heading is too long, you're just going to grab this little selector between column A and B or between B and C, whatever column you're working in, and you're just going to click and drag it and you're going to make that column wider so that it doesn't get cut off by something in the cell next door. Now you can do that before or after you've typed the content of the cell next door. And obviously here, if I type March sales in here and find that February sales has been cut off, then I can just drag this. Again, you can do it any time that you like. Let's put some numbers in here. I'm going to put 3,500. You might be tempted to do this, $3, 500.00. And while that's a valid cell entry, you'll see that all you had to do was type 3500 and then you could what's called format it. So let's type in here 4500. Now this number looks different to this one, but it's only the way that it's laid out and we call that formatting. And here up here are the number formats. Now again, you might be inclined to just go, oh, I want it to look like dollars, so I'll just click on dollars. Well, you can see here that this looks a bit different to this cell here. You can see the dollar sign is a bit further away. If we click on this little arrow, the number format arrow here, we can get to see what formats are available. And this is an accounting format. It's the sort of thing accountants use. I prefer to use currency because things are jammed together a bit more. They're going to look more like this. You can determine here how you want your negative numbers to look. Are they going to have minuses or are they going to be in red? I'm going to use minuses. There's your dollar symbol. If you're working in pounds or euros or something, then you can select that option there. And decimal places, the number of digits that are after the decimal point, typically 2 or 0. I'm just going to click OK, and you can see this number format is a little bit different. This is probably a nicer one to work with. So you can format numbers once you've entered them into cells. You can also format words. So January sales, I might want this to be in bold. Here's the bold option, and I might want it to be green type. Just going to make these two columns a bit wider. You can see I've got both columns selected now. If I drag on them, both columns are going to be enlarged. You can see that the word January is on the left and the numbers are on the right. Numbers are always aligned to the right. Well, I might want to make the heading aligned to the right neatly. So up here we've got the options of align to the left, which is what we're seeing here now. Center, that's okay too. And here is the right aligned. Now I formatted the word January sales exactly how I want it to look. I want to go and do the same with February. To short circuit this process, this is a really handy tool up here. It's called Format Painter. What you're going to do with Format Painter is, first of all, you're going to click on a cell that has a format that you want to copy. So we're just going to click on that cell, then we're going to click Format Painter. You can see it's got little dashes around it. We're going to click immediately on February sales, and that format is now applied also to February sales. Now we may want to total these January and February sales to see what the total is. So we need to be able to do some simple mathematics. So one thing that Excel can do is do additions, so you don't have to do them yourself. You can type just a plus sign or an equal sign, it doesn't matter which. And then you can click on one cell that you want to add. We want to add this cell, so I'm going to click on it. You can see that it's referred to as A3. And then we want a plus sign because we're going to add two numbers together. And then we're going to click here on February sales, and that's cell B3, and I'm just going to press enter. And the total of January sales and February sales is 8,000. Now we could have written 8,000 in there because it's very easy for us to add that ourselves. But what if we made a mistake? What if February sales was supposed to be 5,500? So let me just type 5,500 in here and press enter. Couple of things, you'll see that the format has been reapplied to this number, so I didn't have to reformat it. It's just sticky if you like, but also this number has changed. And it's going to continually show the result of adding these two cells together. So we don't have to check every time we make a change to a cell to make sure that the sum over here is still correct. Now I used a plus sign for a sum. We also need to know how to multiply, divide and subtract. Let's just go and look at those here. So if I want to subtract these numbers, I'm going to go equal, and I'm going to click on the cell I want to subtract from. So I want to subtract 3,500 from 5,500. So here's my B3. I'm going to hit the minus sign, and then I'll click on the cell that I want to subtract from it and press enter. And we're looking for an answer of about 2,000. There we are. That's the subtraction one. What if we want to multiply these? It doesn't make sense in these circumstances, but we need to know how to multiply. Equal. We're going to click on the first cell to multiply, and you'll see that on your keyboard there is no multiplication sign that you know of. It's not the X symbol. What we're going to do is use the asterisk. So we're going to tap the asterisk and then the second cell that we want to multiply, and here is the answer. So an asterisk is the multiplication sign, and if we want to divide, then again equals, and then we're going to divide this number here by this number. So we're going to say this number divided by, again there's no division sign on your keyboard, it's the / key. It's this / key. You'll find it in the numbers area of your keyboard if your keyboard has a numbers pad. And then we're going to do the number we're going to divide by. We're looking at 5,500 divided by 3,500. The answer is going to be over 1. So yes, it is. It's about 1.57. I'm doing a mental check to make sure I've got things correct. That's also really important to do when you're working with Excel, because it's really easy to make mistakes. In fact, it's horribly easy to make mistakes. So when you're starting out, you may want to also get a calculator out or do a rough check of the answers, because things can be surprising. And let's have a look at something that is surprising. Let's have a look at a very simple calculation. So this is the calculation I want you to look at. 2 plus 4 times 3. That looks stupidly easy. Let's go and enter it into an Excel cell. I'm going to type the equal sign, and then I'm going to type 2 plus 4, and then the symbol that we know is multiplication, the asterisk, and I'm going to type 3. Think about what you think the answer is. If you didn't get 14, then you have just had a really good example of how things can be different in Excel to what you think they are. The reason for this is that there's an order of operations, and when you do mathematics, you do multiplication and division before you do addition. So what Excel is doing is it's saying 4 times 3 is 12 plus 2 is 14. It's not 18. Excel is not saying 2 plus 4 is 6 times 3 is 18. That's not the way things are done. So you want to be 100% sure that you know what you're doing when you're working in Excel, or else you could be just dangerous. Because we use Excel to calculate things that involve numbers like salaries and tax deductions and shipping costs and all those sorts of things. And if you're wrong, it's likely to affect a company's bottom line. So you want to be 100% careful that you know what you're doing when you're working in Excel. I don't want to scare you, but I do want you to think very carefully about what you're doing. So far we've seen how to do simple mathematics, but here we have a column of numbers, and it could be quite a long column of numbers. So I'm just going to click in this cell here. We're going to build up a formula that's going to total all of these numbers. We're going to do it by hand, then we're going to do it automatically. By hand, there is a function in Excel that's called sum. So we're going to type the equals sign and SUM for sum, and then an open bracket, because Excel's formulas are written inside brackets. And what we want to do is to sum all of these numbers from cell B2 all the way down to cell B9. I'm going to close off the brackets, because when I open a bracket I have to close a bracket. I'm just going to press enter. And Excel has totaled all of these numbers. So if we make a change to one of these numbers, for example, say we left the 1,000 off that number, you'll see that the total is changing automatically. This is a sum function. This is a basic function in Excel. Now you can also get Excel to do this for you, but it's important to understand what Excel's actually doing. So you will want to build a few by hand first and then use the automatic process. So I'm clicking where I want my answer to be. I'm looking at the Home tab here of the ribbon and over here to the word Auto Sum, and I'm just going to click it. And you can see here that Excel has gone ahead and added these cells. It's written this exact same formula for us. All we need to do is to press enter. So let's have a look here at change. What I want to do is see how much bigger the 2023 figures are to the 2022 ones. So I'm going to type equals, and then I'm going to subtract the 2022 figures from the 2023. So let's go and get 2023, and then we'll minus 2022's figure. So that's a $400 difference, and just looking at it, that's obviously correct. Now I don't want to have to calculate these all by hand, so what I can do in Excel is copy this formula. You can see here there's a little dark square in the bottom corner of this cell. If we hover over it, it turns in, or the mouse pointer turns into a plus sign. I can just click with my left mouse button and drag. And when I let go, Excel does the calculation for us. You can see that we earned, or we had less in 2023 than in 2022 here. So the numbers are in brackets. If we don't want them to be in brackets, well, we already know the answer to that. If you remember a minute ago, we were looking at number formats. Let's go to this option here and let's go and say, well, there is a custom number format applied to this. So let's just go to number here. We're going to do 0 decimal places. We will use the thousand separator. In the currencies that I'm using here, it is a comma. In some countries in Europe, that will be a full stop. You just choose whatever makes sense to you. And I'm going to make my negative numbers negative. So let's just click OK. And we've changed the format of those numbers. The numbers are the same. The calculation is just a formula in underneath all of these cells, but the way that they're shown on the screen is a little bit different. One other of the things that you should be able to do in Excel is to sort data. Here we have details of some architectural drawings, and the drawing numbers are in this column and they're out of order. It would be really nice to put this data back in order. So what I'm going to do is click in one of these cells, it doesn't matter which. I'm going to the Home tab of the ribbon and I'm going across here to sort and filter. I'm going to click on this option. And we're going to sort this particular column from smallest to largest. So I'm just going to click here. and you'll see that this column has sorted from smallest to largest, but it's taken its data with it. So it's not just this column, but this is treated as an entire line of data, and so it's been rearranged accordingly. So just be aware that the data is all going to move around as it should if you're sorting. Now, in addition to sorting, there's also an option called filtering. You can see filter is on the same menu, so let's see how we would do that. With our cell pointer somewhere inside our arrangement of data, we're just going to click somewhere and we're going to sort and filter, and we're going to filter. You'll see that the data hasn't actually changed, but there's little arrows here. So let's just go and see what we could do here. Let's go to type of drawing. Inside this column are drawings for extensions and garages and house and remodel and workshop, and at the moment we've got select all selected. I'm just going to disable that, and let's say we wanted to see just the garage drawings. Well, I'm going to click on the garage drawings and click OK. And now in our data you'll see that we're only seeing the garage drawings, but over here you can see that the row numbers are showing the row numbers 2, 4, 7 and 14, which was where our garages are. But in between there, the rest of the data is still sitting there, it's just not visible. We've also got a slightly different indicator here telling us that there is actually a filter on this particular column. Let's just click on it. Let's go back to selecting all and click OK, and we'll go back to seeing all our data. So filtering is a handy way to pull from a series of data the data that you want to see, and typically it would be seen as a beginner skill. The last skill we're going to look at is doing charts. To understand the basics of charts in Excel, we've got some data here. We've got sales data for computer software consulting and telephony for 3 geographical locations. To create a chart for this, we're going to click and drag over the data that we want to chart. And then we're going up here to the Insert menu. And there's an option here called Recommended Charts, which is a really good thing to start off with. And see here, you can click to see what sort of chart you may want to create. Now, the problem with charts for beginner users is that people see charts like these waterfall and funnel charts and box and whiskers and tree maps and think, oh, wow, this is really cool, why don't I choose one of these? Well, the reason why you don't choose one of those is because they're not the appropriate chart to use. If you don't understand a chart, if you don't understand exactly what it's showing, then you should not be using it. You want to use simple charts, bar charts, column charts, line charts, very, very simple charts, and that will give you the best result. You also need to think about what you're trying to show in your chart. Here we would see a comparison of computers and software and consulting and telephony for Canada, California and other West Coast. Here we would see the sum of computers that we sold through all 3 regions. It would be more difficult for us to determine, for example, how much the computers sold in California, Canada and West Coast actually related to each other. If we wanted to see the comparisons, it would be better to use this chart. So just be aware that each of these charts is going to show different data. You need to think about what it is that you're trying to show your audience. I'm just going to choose this one. It's a nice simple chart, and you won't go wrong with a chart like this. Here we have computer software consulting and telephony and the geographical locations. Well, what if we wanted this to be the geographical locations and these to be the computer software, etc.? Well, with the chart selected, you'll see an option up here which says switch row column. Let's just click on that. And you can see that the chart just reworks itself. So now we've got Canada, and this is computers, this is software, this is consulting, and this is telephony. So switch row columns just switches the chart around. Here is the chart title, and you can just type in here whatever the title is supposed to be. It's important to add a title to a chart because there's a chance that this chart might actually get printed on a separate sheet of paper, or it might be taken to another document. And if it doesn't have a title, it's really hard to understand what it is that you're trying to show somebody. This is called a legend, and so this chart has a legend, and it should have a legend. If this legend were not here, it wouldn't be impossible to tell what these blue, red and green pieces are. If you need to show somebody what this data actually relates to, in our case this is dollars, then you could add an axis title. So I'm just going to select this axis. I'm going over here to the plus sign and I'm going down here to axis titles. I'm going to click on that, and what I want to do is to use the primary vertical axis. So I just want to put a title here. Don't actually want one necessarily for the horizontal, so I might turn that one off, just leaving in primary vertical. And here I'm going to be typing sideways, and I'm just going to put a dollar sign here, and that's telling me that they are dollars, but if they were something else you would put obviously whatever they happen to be. Microsoft Excel is obviously a really big program, and we've just scratched the surface of it here. But what you've learned in this video are basic Excel skills that should allow you to operate a Excel worksheet in the workplace. Just be aware that it's not unusual for people not to understand things, and that somebody who is supervising you in the workplace would rather that you asked a question than that you thought you knew what you were doing and you destroyed their worksheet. So don't be afraid to ask questions, but make sure that you write down the answers so that you're not asking the same question over and over again. I wish you all the best in using Excel in your new job. If you like carefully researched content like this, clearly presented in a step-by-step format so that you can get great results every time, then you'll love my other YouTube videos. So give this video a thumbs up and click to subscribe to the channel. And on the screen now, you'll see a video that I've handpicked for you to watch next.